We'll start here in just a minute. Let me get these last few stragglers in, Mr. Klugman.
So just a reminder to everybody that's already in the meeting, Zoom does not do too well conversationally. So trying to make as little noise when somebody else has the floor is phenomenal. And I see we have what looks like a bunch of Zoom veterans in the meeting right now, because everybody who's in for the most part is muted. So thanks for that. But if you're not muted, just remember that any background noise, including the stuff that's behind you, even if you're not talking, may be picked up. So thank you for muting. And I think Brian mentioned the Q&A is going to be two parts. We had parents submit questions ahead of time. I'm going to handle those. I'll share my screen in a minute because I put some information on slides to share with everybody. And then you'll also have an opportunity to either chat in questions via the chat, or we will certainly open up the floor toward the end of this. And hopefully we're not here until 9:30, 10 o'clock tonight.
That would be a fun problem to have. All right, we're at 6:01. We got almost 90 people in here at this point, so I'm going to let people in as we go.
So Brian, just a heads up, a question just came into the chat. Someone asked, what is the PTO website? So folks, if you go to bcmspto.org, that is the PTO's website. And you can also, they have an online store there. So if you need to order things, you can do that through that website as well. And I think Brian just posted that link into the chat. So if you click your chat button, you'll also see that link in there.
Yep. All right. So let's get started here. We're up to 100 people, which is awesome. We thank everyone for joining us. Let me introduce myself. My name is Brian Sinkoff. I'm the BCMS PTO Vice President, my second year here as the VP. Just wanted to thank everybody for joining us here on this Wednesday night. Hope everyone is having a great summer. You guys have a lot of questions about the upcoming school year, and this is what this is for. The PTO held these Q&A sessions last year as we went into the 2021 school year, which had a lot more uncertainty than even now, believe it or not. But we decided to do this again here tonight. We are honored to be joined by Mike Klugman, the principal for BCMS. So we're happy to have him here. What we're going to do this a couple of different ways. A lot of people were able to submit your questions. You got those several emails over the last week or so. You were able to submit your questions there. You can also submit your questions to me personally. You can see me as BCMS PTO VP. You can just message me privately if you don't want to have your question read by everyone or seen by everyone, or you could simply post your question in the chat. That would be good as well. We had a lot of questions come in prior to this, so without further ado, I want to turn it over to Mr. Mike Klugman as he will answer your questions and do a slideshow for us about what we can expect coming up as what we know now for this upcoming school year. Mike?
Thanks, Brian, and a shout out to the PTO, all the executive board for hosting this event and many others in the past year. It's been amazing, honestly, to see so much participation in our PTO events, especially during the pandemic. I think we've averaged, Brian, I don't know, 60 to 70 people at some of our meetings, which is really impressive. So thank you to all of you who are making time for this, and certainly for the PTO too. I wanted to reiterate something Brian said. All of us have been Zoom rookies at various points. So I want to reiterate something for those folks that may not be used to Zoom because maybe you're used to some other medium. When you're chatting, you'll notice down in the chat button, there's a to field as with regard to who you send it to. And your default is probably everyone. So when you chat, if you leave everyone up there, it's going to go out to everybody that's in this meeting. And to Brian's point, you can change that to Brian. So if you just want to send your question to Brian, Brian's going to get to as many of those questions as you can. And I have 6:04, and believe it or not, a question just came in to the online link that we submitted to folks. And I'm reviewing that too. So I have like 4 screens up, and I'm about to press share. My laptop sometimes doesn't do well when I start sharing screens. So if I cut out, Brian, just interrupt me, and I may have to leave the meeting and come back in. So what you're about to see is a slide deck that we'll share that hits upon some of the questions and then just general information that I want to share with everybody. So Brian, are you seeing a slide deck right now?
Yes, I
don't
am.
see him. All right, I'm going to click the present button here and go over to present mode. So
Yep,
let me
we got
skip
it.
ahead. So first and foremost, I put some of these slides together, believe it or not, a few weeks ago, because I anticipated lots of questions just based on what we went through this past year. So what you're looking at is what we would call like a desk setup in a classroom, and the fundamental difference between this year and last school year, this coming year. So you'll hear me say this year, and I mean this coming year, 21-22, and I'll say last year, and what I mean by last year is 2021. All of our desks in the building were 6 feet apart. So as we got later in the year, if any student tested positive, believe it or not, according to the DOH, Albany County DOH guidelines, we didn't ever have to quarantine additional students in the building because we were at 6 feet. And there was a distinction made by DOH. Parents will probably remember that there were points where we had to quarantine a whole team or a whole group of kids in a classroom. But DOH made a distinction about mid-year where they stopped quarantining an entire classroom or group of kids. What they allowed us to do is say that anybody that was outside of 6 feet and not inside of 6 feet would never have to be quarantined. And because of the setup of our building, we didn't have to quarantine any students later on in the year, other than those that tested positive, obviously. So that's a change. There's going to be a change coming this year to get all of our students in the building, right? So that's a popular question. We have approximately 1,000 students coming to the middle school this school year, where our goal is to get every single one of those students in the building and make room for them. We'll talk about what options parents have in a little while. So our seats will be inside of 6 feet, and across our building, we have bigger classrooms, smaller classrooms. So in some classrooms, those desks might be 4 feet apart. In other classrooms, those desks might be 5 feet apart. What the guidance is right now from CDC and DOH is you cannot go shorter than 3 feet, and we will not have a classroom in the building that's shorter than 3 feet. You'll also notice there in the red box, there is still a limitation for performing music, which is singing in choir or instrument playing that are horns. So this doesn't apply to violins and those kinds of things. So that those performing music realms are still at 6 feet. And what we are kind of awaiting guidance on right now, the piece that has not been updated, when we contact trace a student, the contact tracing still goes out to 6 feet. So even though the seating guidance is inside of 6 feet, when we contact, if I'm sitting next to Brian and Brian and I are 4 feet apart and I test positive, Brian would be identified as a close contact. And literally, I didn't have time to update the slide deck because we just found this out literally today. We had a student who we identified as a close contact in one of our summer programs last night. I called DOH and DOH told us today, and I don't know if this guidance will change because of the Delta variant, but right now this is really optimistic news. What DOH told us today is the students that we identified as close contacts because they were inside of 6 feet, they were on a school bus, all those students that were already vaccinated and had already gotten their second shot and were 2 weeks out from their second shot, none of those students needed to quarantine. So that's really optimistic news for us, that we won't have to quarantine students, if they've been vaccinated and they're outside of that window where they're fully immunized. And if folks have questions on that, we'll get to that later on. So here's, if you notice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 there, as I mentioned, we anticipate all students being in person. We anticipate that all students and staff will wear face masks. The school, and just so everybody is clear, please don't send emails to teachers asking about that. Don't send emails to me. And not that I don't want them, but I'm not in control of that. The teachers are not in control of that. Nobody in the school is in control of that. The school is abiding by the external guidance that we are getting from health agencies. So the CDC is involved in that. The Albany County DOH is involved in that. The governor's been very popular with his webcasts. And obviously New York State Education Department's involved in that too. And just so folks understand the hierarchy here, it's kind of weird because even though the CDC comes out and sometimes gives great news, sometimes not great news, we, the school district, have to wait until Albany County Department of Health follows that CDC guidance. And there have been lags where Albany County will wait a week and sometimes even 2 weeks before they adopt that guidance. So we are following everything that Albany County DOH suggests to us. And of course, our board makes decisions and our central administration makes decisions. But just so everybody's aware, as a principal of the school, I have no power. I wish I did. I have no power over what the CDC mandates are and whether we wear face masks or not. So just a heads up on that. So you'll note if guidance changes between now and the start of school. So for example, if the CDC or Albany County DOH comes out and says that nobody needs to wear face masks, then I put face masks on our supply list for students. And my thinking on that is better to be prepared for the worst and hope for the best. So my thought is, if you want to hold off as a parent until to buy face masks until you hear whether or not that guidance cements itself, that's certainly fine. That's actually why you notice Brian made reference to a second meeting just like this one that's coming in August. That's why we scheduled that meeting in August, this August, because last year guidance was continually changing, if not every 60 days, every 30 days, and sometimes even sooner than that. And the guidance piece that I shared with you that we just found out today about the student vaccination piece is a new one. So that's literally, we try to keep in mind that every 60 days, our world completely turns around. So that's a great kind of like time frame to think of, because we're almost 60 days out from the start of school. So as I mentioned, seating no less than 3 feet, close contacts are ID'd out to 6 feet for contact tracing. Schools, just here's another point of order a lot of parents asked about. Schools cannot mandate nor require vaccinations, and we cannot discriminate based on whether students are vaccinated or not. So I can't seat all the vaccinated students over here and all the non-vaccinated students over there. So your student, if they're vaccinated, might be sitting next to a student who's not, and maybe they're face masked, maybe they're not. Again, that may change with guidance. And currently, just so everybody's aware, we've heard, and I don't know if this is factual or not, we've heard that there may not be a vaccine available for the group of kids that are between the ages of 5 and 12 until perhaps the midpoint of this year, like December, January. So none of our incoming sixth graders have been vaccinated. So as a middle school, we're literally right in the middle where some of our students literally cannot be vaccinated and lots of others can. And unlike the elementary schools where they know every single student can't be vaccinated, and unlike the high school where they know every student could be, we have both groups. So scheduling during 21-22, for sixth grade parents that are joining us today, you are hopefully aware that last year we pulled foreign language away from our current seventh graders. So last year when they were in sixth grade, in order to get all of our sixth graders in the building, we took our foreign language teachers and created extra sections of kids because we couldn't fit all of our sections in the building if we had 24, 25, 26 kids in a classroom. So the sacrifice was losing foreign language. And for incoming sixth graders, we are bringing that back. So sixth, seventh, and eighth grade will all have a 9-period day. And a real strong point of order for seventh grade parents, our seventh grade foreign language teachers are prepared and ready curricularly to start your students like they're starting from scratch. They're not just going to jump in and assume that your kids have done a lot of prep and build up over the summer. We know that those kids are behind, and we're going to remedy those gaps. So I'm about to flip to a slide that kind of shows you a schematic of that, but just another quick couple of updates. All students will have home bases. Students will be allowed to move between their teachers during home bases. We have a mechanism in place that allows us to track where students are seated in the event we need to. And lunches are still an unknown because we do not yet know whether or not students, obviously they have to take their masks off when they're eating. We do not yet know if we're going to get permission to go inside of 6 feet, excuse me. And if we cannot go inside of 6 feet, we still need to use 3 eating spaces. And we're obviously hoping to change that because with all of our students in the building, taking our upper gymnasium and using it as an eating space really hinders our PE program. So we're hoping to give our upper gymnasium back to our PE teachers in the PE program. So as soon as we know guidance on that, we will let parents know how many eating spaces we'll have, whether students have discretion over choosing who they sit with, all that kind of stuff. But know this, lots of questions about whether students can sit near friends and do those kinds of things when they're eating. Myself, Mark Warford, and Jackie Monroe, our 2 assistant principals, we started loosening that up a little bit last year. We intend to try to loosen that up this fall. So we're going to try and build in some student choice, and we'll announce that to students prior to the start of school, and parents, you'll be included in that as well. So this is a sample schedule, and keep in mind that what you're looking at, for example, I'm going to talk about 6th grade for a second. This does not, emphasis on not, it does not mean that all 6th graders are taking PE in their first period. So all of those things, the only 2 things that are cemented in there are the blue lunch and the purple home base. everything else can move around, and that's the way we build schedules. So it's very likely your child's schedule will not look like the one that's up on the board. But I put this up here just to demonstrate, what the courses are, what the classes are, what the timing of the day is, so you know how your student's going to travel through their day, and what we call exploratory. So what I listed in period 9, that students have 10 weeks of art, 10 weeks of music, and 20 weeks of tech. In 6th grade, tech consists of a computer literacy class. In 7th grade, tech is engineering basics 1. And then in 8th grade, tech is engineering basics 2. 8th graders have a chance to accelerate and take either a high school art class or a high school tech class. Those classes are full year in length. So if they accelerate into one of those classes, they don't have the other exploratories in that period. And then RR, where you see it listed in that schedule, means resource room. So you'll notice in 6th and 7th grade, if your child has a resource room, they may not have foreign language. And we talk about that when we have our CSE meetings, so parents are aware. Let's see. So the other things that get built into our home bases are performing music. So if let's say you're a saxophone player, the large band plays together during home base, but there's a second teaching modality, which is just your saxophones who play together, learn together as a smaller group. We stair step their schedule through the day. So for example, either A, you're not losing home base, but you're also not losing the same class every week. So those groups, those performing groups, meet once a week. So you're a saxophone player, your sax group meets once a week. So this week it might be Monday, first period. Next week it might be, second period. The week after that, third period. So you're never missing the same class more than once in a quarter, because that's 9 periods over 10 weeks. So maybe once a year one time a year they'd miss 2 weeks. And then moving on to the next slide. Additional changes this year, extracurricular activities are back in person. So there's comments here about some before school activities, after school activities, but most importantly, we do not have early transportation. So if there's anything offered before the school day, parents need to transport for that. And because of that, you will notice there are far fewer things listed and offered before school. We have late bus transportation Tuesday through Friday. We do not offer Monday, primarily because Monday is a teacher meeting day, literally almost every week of the month. So late buses depart at, we load late buses at 3:45. We depart at 4 o'clock. Our regular dismissals at 2:45. So that gives any after school clubs, or let's say your child misses a couple of days of school and they want to catch up with a teacher after school, like do some help seeking stuff, study for a test, get organized. They can meet with a teacher at, provided they set it up ahead of time, or teachers will announce what days they typically stay after. They are a lot of times willing to open up to other days, but those are the kinds of things you want to be proactive about and just give the teacher a heads up that your child is going to plan to meet with them. And typically from 2:45 until about 3:30 or 3:45, students will meet with teachers or be in their clubs. A list of active clubs is still being basically built. So as you all might imagine, we didn't have a lot of active clubs last year because we weren't allowed to. So we're checking in with all of our staff. We had a lot of turnover from retirement, a lot of phenomenal hires. We're fully set with our personnel at this point, which is great. And we're checking in with teachers to see if they want to run certain clubs. So we will publicize that both before, like literally September 1st, before students are in the building. We will also, we're going to beat you over the head with it via email, because we want to really emphasize students getting socialized again to their peers, seeing the kids they haven't had a chance to see, getting active in these clubs, service, whether it's service orientation, whether it's personal interest like Magic, the card gathering club, or whether it's an intramural program where they want to get out and move. We want literally every student in the building to have at least engaged with one club or extracurricular activity throughout the school year. And many parents would testify that most kids in the building will sometimes pick 2 or 3 and rotate in and out. And sometimes they have to figure out conflicts because clubs may meet on the same day, and that's fine. We encourage kids to work through that because it's helping them learn great communication skills and some adult behaviors, which is great. We anticipate, next bullet there, that lockers are back. So we are fully intending to bring back lockers in the hallways that students would leave coats, boots, book bags, that kind of stuff in. We do not yet know if we are going to be allowed to change in PE class. So we're prompting parents to buy 2 padlocks, one for the hallway, the second one for the PE locker. We do not yet know if PE lockers are going to be back in play. We're still awaiting that guidance. So hopefully more to come on that very soon. And then, as I note, the timing of a routine day is on our next slide. So the drop-off period, we will once again allow parents to drop any student off as early as 7:30, and we will have a place for them to go that is safe and socially distant. And that's if they're not in a club. So if they're in a club, they can go straight to their club. They would meet with their teacher and the kids that are in the club. Note that we anticipate that SWAT, which stands for Student Wellness and Training, will be back this year. And for current 7th grade parents and current 6th grade parents who don't know what that is, every Tuesday and Thursday, a group of our PE teachers will run a program where kids are moving. They're doing all kinds of stuff. They run that 2 days a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It goes all year long. And yes, they actually start promptly at 6:45. So kids are showing up to the building as early as 6:40. And yes, you can get into the building at 6:40. The homeroom entry bell is staying the same. The dismissal staying the same. So the entries at 8 o'clock, our class length's about 40 minutes. We have hall passing times of 3 minutes. We're going to try and stagger that as much as we can so kids aren't, crowded, overlapped. Our dismissal, again, 2:45, the after school period, as I mentioned, and then the late bus again, as I mentioned. Parent questions. So this list that I'm about to read from, and I apologize, I'm going to do the PowerPoint thing. These are questions that were submitted by folks. And the only reason why I'm doing really bad PowerPoint presenting is because we're recording this. So I didn't want to just say the answers. This will let parents who are watching this at a later date kind of scan through what the question was, what the answers were. So I put the answers on the screen so everybody can see them. Will there be an orientation process to acclimate all students back? So we normally do this in 6th grade every year because we know it's a huge transition for our 6th graders, but we're also going to do it in 7th and 8th grade this year because we know those students. So think if you're a rising 8th grader, if you were an A-day student because your last name was between A and K, you haven't seen some of your friends if you weren't involved in outside activities in over almost 2 years. So we know that we want to do a lot of team building, socialization activity in the first month of the school year. So believe it or not, our message to our staff with regard to curricular rigor at the start of the year is very much going to be similar to what our 6th grade teachers do every year, where there's a tremendous amount of team building, getting to know your teacher, getting to know your peers, developing healthy habits with regard to organization, getting set up the right way, getting your locker set up, figuring out how you're moving through your day, figuring out all the COVID restrictions and what's normal and what's not. So we're going to move slowly with rigor. So parents, our message to staff is that we're not yet back to full rigor. And I have no idea whether New York State is going to say that there will be exams at the end of the year and what the Regents exams look like. So as soon as we get guidance on that, we will share that with parents. Vaccines and vaccinations, as I mentioned, the district cannot require these. That decision has to come from health agencies and authorities. I will say this, we are hoping to run a vaccine clinic in the middle school for our 7th and 8th graders or 6th graders once they age into that. And then obviously if there's a vaccine that's developed for 5 to 12-year-olds, we'd hope to run a vaccine clinic here. So it's easy, you can drop off, kids get their shot. Whether it's a 1-shot clinic or 2-shot clinic, depending on what's offered, we will publicize those things well in advance so parents know. Again, we're not going to mandate, we can't require you to get vaccinated. So just to have an FYI on that. No vaccine yet, as I mentioned, for 12 and under. The mask mandates driven by CDC and New York State Departments of Health. All vaccinated students, as far as we know right now, remain under a mask mandate. If that changes, we will put that out. All staff, believe it or not, remain under a mask mandate as it stands right now, and most of our staff are vaccinated. Vaccinated teachers, and so this is the guidance that is 2 days old now. So we were under the understanding as recently as last week and as recently as 2 days ago that vaccinated teachers would not be identified as close contacts, even if they were within 6 feet. We were also under the understanding, and I'll change this slide and I'll send a communique out to folks who are viewing this later. You'll notice in here that it says vaccinated students can be ID'd as close contact. That changed in the last 24 hours. So right now, vaccinated students are not being identified as close contacts. Quarantining, as far as we know right now, the duration is still 10 days. That was shortened from 14 days if you were thinking of that old number. The district does not determine this. Albany County DOH literally calls your house. They will communicate with you, the parent. They will not communicate with your student. And they will tell you whether or not your child has to quarantine. There is no online learning option that is being planned yet. Whether or not that changes, I don't know. If that changes, we will let parents know. Teachers will supply work if your child is quarantined, and a tutoring option will be provided at either an hour or 2 hours a day, depending on age. Elementary students would get an hour a day. Middle high school students, this is again, if your child goes into quarantine, middle and high school students would get tutored for 2 hours a day. And that would be through a link just like this one, like a Zoom meeting or a Google Meet. And we would have staff deliver that tutoring to your child. Teachers, again, will supply work. And then no recording of lessons. We're not, so the district has agreed that teachers are not going to record their lessons and send those out at a later date. So more parent questions, backpacks and lockers and cell phones. So just so all of our parents and our students are aware, when lockers are in use, students do not carry backpacks during the day. And believe it or not, the primary reason for that is safety. When we start moving desks back closer together, we don't have a safe traffic alleys and ways in the classrooms for kids to leave backpacks on floors. We also don't want a 50-pound, believe it or not, we have students that are 45, 50, and 60 pounds. We don't want a sixth grader carrying, who weighs 60 pounds, carrying a 60-pound backpack, and they have ample opportunity throughout the day to go to their lockers and exchange their supplies. And we encourage that because it helps them with their organization. Cell phones, we have a board policy that was actually put into effect last year, but because we didn't use lockers, we let students carry their cell phones with them. But when lockers are in play, students are required to keep their cell phones in their lockers. So the first question a parent might have, well, what if it's an emergency and I need them to call me? We will give a student permission to use their cell phone to call you, but they have to go to an office where they're not creating a model for other students where they're, making phone calls in the hallways kind of thing. And parents, just so you all know, in the era before cell phones, parents either called the main office or they called the counseling office. We will call students down to talk to you if we need to. We will relay messages to them immediately if we have to. And we will put them on the phone with you if you want to talk to them. So even if your student, so remember, we don't mandate cell phones, and students should be able to go through middle school without one. So if your child has a cell phone, that is completely your parent discretion. We don't have a problem with or without, but we set up our systems to accommodate both groups of students. So if your child does not have a cell phone, that's perfectly fine. We will get any urgency of communication to them, inclusive of you getting them on the phone to talk to them. And we can do that anytime. Water bottles, we ask that parents please supply a reusable water bottle. Our PTO was phenomenal last year in dropping off plastic water bottles. I can tell you the plastic water bottles don't really fit with our environmental ethic kind of thing, but in COVID, we get it, right? There wasn't a lot of recycling. We wanted to keep kids healthy and safe, so we gave them as many plastic water bottles as we could. It's really helpful because of the bottle filling stations that are in the building. If you give them a reusable bottle, because it helps them develop their routine. In other words, if they're walking out of the house with the same stuff every day, they build that routine. Believe it or not, it helps them with all their other routines that they're trying to build throughout the day. School supplies, you'll notice I sent out an updated supply list. We posted that to our website. Still a little less than normal this year, but teachers will be using paper and manipulatives, so you'll be seeing stuff come home. All of our students, thank you to the PTO, will be getting one of our organization agenda books that they write their homework in, so parents can see that. You can actually tangibly see what they're writing down. Teachers will be disinfecting any manipulatives that are handled and shared by students. So for example, I run a chess club. I'm hoping and intending to run that chess club live and in person this year, but I'll be spraying down all the pieces after students are done with them kind of thing. So we can use manipulatives like chess pieces. We just have to clean them and disinfect them. Please see the BCMS webpage. And if you go to the BCMS webpage, you're looking for a link over on the right that says information for parents. And in that information for parents link, you'll see our supply list. Again, I put 2 padlocks on there. I don't know if we're starting the year with 2 or 1. So just a heads up, but I think at some point, I certainly hope this year, you're going to need 2. PE, recess, and lunch and outdoor classes. We're still awaiting guidance on some of those things. We are going forward like we're having recess during lunch, and it's a kind of a 20-20 split, eat for 20, go outside for 20. And we do that whenever we can. So when it gets cold, we even want kids outside. So obviously if it's too cold, we require them to wear coats. But if it's too cold, even when they're wearing coats, we don't send them out. We don't want them getting sick, obviously. And when students, just so parents are aware, when students are outside, based on current guidance, they can take their masks off. So just a heads up on that. Our teachers will probably be taking kids outdoors as much as possible for classes when it fits. And because they don't have half the kids in school, like 7th and 8th grade didn't, half the kids at home, it'll actually be easier to take classes outside. Bus social distancing has diminished. As far as we know, students from the same household could always sit together, but it may be like we can do one per row instead of the 6 feet social distancing, and maybe even 2 per seat. But we're still awaiting guidance on that. And I think that's going to be contingent upon whatever the mask wearing guidance is too. And that is not firmed itself up yet. Cell phones. Some parents asked about help with cell phones. Believe it or not, we are trying to meet your questions and your requests. Our hope is to offer a non-mandated, non-required cell phone 2-hour training course. And this was basically at the requests of parents by students, and increased disciplinary and dangerous cell phone use by BCMS students. I don't want to, shock and awe too much, but we've had students fall into the allure of, predatory traps. And we want to make sure parents and students know what a pervasive threat that is. So part of that is in the cell phone course, but it's also, smaller stuff about how to manage your identity so there's no identity theft online, how to make sure you don't post stuff to an electronic format that is permanent, and always trying to represent your best self when you're online, how to establish healthy habits. So for example, imagine you're a 12-year-old, you're taking a math test and you have a cell phone in your pocket, and almost every student in the building has their notifications set. So they not only show up on their home screen, but their phone buzzes. So we've actually, in the main office, when a student drops a phone off or we confiscate a phone, which we do, we see phones lighting up literally every 5 seconds. So imagine you're sitting in a test and you get a vibration in your pocket every 5 seconds. Your concentration on that test is not going to be very good. And we want to teach kids about how to manage that and not develop the addiction of looking at it every time there's a notification, how to set notifications properly. So more information for that is coming. We have not shared anything yet. We're still firming that up because we have some outside presenters that are experts that we'd like to bring in for that. So as soon as we firm that up, we hope to offer that live and in person. And just so parents are aware, you can, but don't have to participate in that. You could sit next to your student, or if you or they are embarrassed by you two being in the same room together, we may do a breakout if we have enough resources, meaning staff, to handle that. Athletics. So as of this July, this month, we anticipate being able to offer all of our modified and high school sports programming. So what's still undetermined is the use of facilities by outside groups. So for example, Bethlehem BBC, Bethlehem boys basketball, Bethlehem girls basketball, we don't know if we're going to allow outside groups to come into the building. And the reason for that is because any outside group that's managed by a parent, by a bystander, it's not a staff member, as a district, those groups would have to assure us that they're abiding by whatever the COVID guidance is at that time. And we honestly have no assurances because they're not our staff. So we're hoping to open that up, but that's going to be a decision made at a level far above mine. So an FYI on that. And then some parents, I'm jumping off the slide a little bit. Some parents asked about how do we find out about sports opportunities. So this is where your knowledge of Aspen comes in. And I didn't know this literally until this past spring. Parents, we post information about athletics to your parent page that does not get posted to middle school students page. And the reason why is because there's information that you as a parent have to fill out that students cannot fill out. So it's confidential, private. It's like a sports update form. There's some physical information, like medical information, that you would provide our nurses. So parents, if you're looking over your child's shoulder, you're not going to see that information on their Aspen page. So parents, if you've always looked over your child's shoulder, I've done the same thing. If you need to learn or re-understand and reset your passwords, you can personally send me an email, literally write to me. I will connect you to our help desk. They will reset your password, tell you, how to reset it once it's set to a generic password. And that way you'll be able to get into your account. So any sports, athletics information, all those deadlines that come up, they're going to be on your parent Aspen page right on the main screen. Let's see, the pit, as far as we know, we just found out that yesterday, again, that we are able to let the town run the pit after school activities. Again, we will have transportation after school. So that will be up and running. Any outside town staff that come and join us to run that, the district so far is abiding by guidance. They have to be vaccinated. They have to be face masked. Again, if that changes, we will certainly communicate that to the town. Parents' questions continued. Some parents asked about school meals. Both breakfast and lunches will be free again this year. So your child doesn't really have to ask about that. All they got to do is show up and buy a lunch. Can they bring a lunch? Absolutely. They can bring whatever they want. Understand though, that for parents that have not been in the building, there are 3 types of eating. There's bringing your lunch, there's buying the standard lunch that's on the menu, and then there's the snack line. Snacks are not free. And if they were, we'd go out of business because the kids love them. So parents, we use Bethlehem all through uses My School Bucks. So if you go to My School Bucks, I don't know whether it's .com or .org. I used it with my son who just graduated, and I would get a notification anytime he ran his monies down. So anytime I got a notification, I just put another $20 in there, and he could go buy stuff at the high school anytime he needed to. We use the same system here in the middle school, and they can use that for snacks. They can use that for buying their lunch. I take that back. They can use it for snacks. They don't have to use it for buying their lunch or breakfast because lunch and breakfast are free. Lunch seating choice. We're awaiting some guidance on that with regard to how far kids sit, but we are going to give some choice to students this year. It's going to be a mess at the start, so understand that, but we'll get it all settled and work with kids to try to get them next to at least 1 or 2 friends. And we're still waiting guidance on the use of PE and PE lockers. And then I'm going to jump off of this slide for a minute, but I wanted to give people a chance to write this down, take a screenshot. I will put this screen back up at the end of our presentation. But at this point, Brian, I'm going to kind of turn over. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to turn over to you as our MC. And if you want to ask any questions that might have come in or to you or that you're aware of, I'll answer whatever I can. One question came in to the link that we sent out that says, the parent says, I have a question about the mask for this year in September. Do kids need to use a mask or not? So we addressed that. Honestly, we still don't know. If we had to say yes or no today, we'd probably say yes, they do. If that changes, we certainly hope it does. But we will let parents know as soon as we get confirmation from Albany County DOH whether it does.
All right, Mike, great job so far. And I know we have some questions coming in. I just wanted to let you know, because I'm getting Facebook messages as well as other messages, private messages from parents. We had a limit. We didn't realize we would get to 100 people. Unfortunately, our BCMS PTO Zoom credentials only allow us 100 people. So a couple of things. This is being recorded. We're going to put this meeting on YouTube, which will ultimately be linked to our website, bcmspto.org, as well as our PTO Facebook page, which I encourage you to join for all information and things pertaining to Bethlehem and the Bethlehem Middle School PTO. So next meeting in August, there's going to be no limit to the amount of people that get in. And the second thing, so if you have friends or whatever that are asking you, hey, I can't get into the meeting, let them know this will be recorded and it's going to be posted pretty shortly. Okay. So we do have some questions. What foreign languages are offered? I answered Spanish, French. That's correct, Mr. Klugman, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Any specific lock guidance or combo lock we had last year did not fit the locker?
Yeah, so real good question, because we sometimes have students come in with locks that, are maybe an accommodation. They're easier for kids because maybe they're letters instead of numbers. We don't care what kind of lock kids use. We don't like keyed locks. And any parent who's had a child that tried to use a keyed lock probably knows why. Kids lose the keys. So we want a combination lock. The only guidance that we would offer parents is at various points in time, there have been either local hardware stores or other retailers that would sell a package of 2 locks with the same combination. We don't have information as to whether or not those are available, but here's the most important guidance. So the curved part that goes up over the top of the circular part is called the HASP, H-A-S-P. You want a locker or a lock that only has no more than a 2-inch HASP, because that's likely what that parent is referring to in the chat. Some kids come in with like a 3-inch, 4-inch HASP lock, and they won't fit because there's a depression in the locker itself, and those longer HASP locks will not fit. So just an FYI there.
All right. Thanks, Mike, for offering this Q&A. I'm set with Aspen credentials, but my son was wondering when and how he would get his password. That might be I'm assuming incoming middle or 6th grader.
No, believe it or not, K-5 students should already have their passwords. If they need us to reset their account, we can do that. So mom and dad should send me an email. And just a reminder for all of you parents, if any of you have high school students, you can email your high school student from a private account. You cannot email a middle or elementary school kid. That's a security setting that we as a district set up because we're trying to keep all of our vendors and any solicitations away from kids. So that's a security setting. And we apologize to parents, but one of the concessions that we make is if you send literally me, I get emails from parents all the time saying, Mr. Klugman, can you forward this to my son or daughter? That's fine. I don't mind doing it. I love having an excuse to communicate and contact kids where it's not a disciplinary situation, because if they have an opportunity to get to know the real Mr. Klugman, who's not, the guy with the frown and the discipline kind of stuff. And just a heads up for all of our parents, we actually do call students to the office to give them awards. So if your child gets called to the office, it's not because they're in trouble. So it might be because they're in trouble, but it's not all the time.
Okay. Again, if you have questions, you want to message me, you can do that in the chat. You can, as Mike said earlier, you can select who it's going to. You just set it to Brian, BCMS PTO or Brian Sinkoff, and I will get that message. All right. Jody says, can we get that slide of important dates again, please? We'll get to that in a second. Is that right?
That's correct. We'll put it
yes,
back up.
We'll get it back up. Mike mentioned Aspen posts about sports. I've seen the sign up forms in the Parent Aspen page. Where can we find general information on all of the sports that are offered as well as other clubs?
So that's one that you'd either read about it on the website. So that if you go to the athletics page, that will list the various sports teams that we have all the way through. So believe it or not, in some sports, we have a 9th grade team. In some sports, we have 2 modified teams. In other sports, we don't. So that website will help you. And then Len Keys, and his name is not spelled like it sounds. Len's last name is Kies. And I'm going to type that into our message system, is our athletic director. And if you want to send a direct email to Len, Len's email address, it follows the same convention that mine does. I just posted Len's name to the chat. So it's lkeys@bethlehemschools.org. By all means, please feel free to reach out. Len's obviously on Twitter as well. So there's information posted about student athletes on there, awards, how students are doing, programs are doing. No private information, just accolades kind of stuff. But you can either check the website for general sports information, or if you have more specific questions, like you don't know who your coach is going to be and you want to reach out to the coach about concerns, that ahead of time, you can reach out to Len and they might be able to give you a coach's name well in advance.
Also, Mike, question about other clubs. Where can they find out the information about that? Some of that probably is going to vary based on what you can have this year, correct?
Yeah, and I'm going to apologize to iPhone Catherine because apparently I just posted Len's name to her. So Catherine, I didn't think you'd have to send that to everybody. I'm retyping it in now. But yeah, so with regard to the active list of clubs, we actually, on parents that were in the middle school last year, are familiar with the team agendas that we use, which were shared with parents and updated literally every week. We are not necessarily going to have team agendas, an agenda for each team, but we liked the ability to share with parents so much as an administration. We are going to have a school-based doc like that, and we will post those links, the list of active clubs, to that, and we update that every time it changes. So if a club comes in that wasn't there, you can recheck that link. And just for parents that are aware, and if any kids are watching, we have a pretty eclectic group of clubs, and any new club, if any student has an interest in a club, they only basically have to do 2 things. They have to find any staff member that's willing to be their advisor, even if their advisor knows nothing about their club. So for example, Magic, the card game, we had advisors for its first 2 years of existence that had no idea how to play. The staff just opened up the room. The kids would come in and play. They knew what they were doing. The staff member might look over their shoulders, but kind of like heads are spinning. So if your kid has an idea, we love starting new clubs, and they go to 1, they go to a teacher, find a teacher. 2, they come to me, get it approved. And I'm pretty liberal with approving as much as I can.
All right. About sports, I'm on Aspen. Info is only a list. Does modified mean middle school? I have an incoming 6th grader. It's unclear what sports are offered when they start. How do you register? Sorry if I'm missing something.
No, believe it or not, I just gave a tour to a family from Saudi Arabia yesterday they transferred there and now they're transferring back for next year. Their sports start in 6th grade, so ours do not. Modified sports, interscholastic sports, which basically means competition against other schools, do not begin until 7th grade. So what we do to supplement opportunities for our 6th graders, because our coaches want to prep those kids to be ready for their, competition when they're in 7th grade. We have an intramural program where we try to offer fall, winter, and spring sports to all of our students. And there is some choice involved. So they may be offering more than one sport at a time. So kids, if they want to, follow an interest, they can.
All right. Can you speak about the math program available for incoming 6th graders who completed Alex Accelerated Math in 5th grade?
Yeah, so the Alex Math was a supplement that was used for students that are trying to accelerate in math. We don't have an acceleration software that we use in middle school. So we have multiple levels of math that we offer in middle school, and what we would call 6X is 1 year advanced. So any 5th grade student that is accelerating in math would accelerate just 1 year. And then as 6th graders transition to 7th grade, there's two acceleration options. They can stay at 1 year accelerated. They could drop back to grade level if they really struggled with math in 6th grade. Or believe it or not, there's a select group of kids who demonstrate that they're ready that can accelerate 2 years. So when they accelerate in 7th grade, 2 years, they actually take a Regents exam both in 7th grade and 8th grade. Otherwise, if you're a single year accelerated, you wouldn't take your first Regents exam until 8th grade.
All right. Hope that answered your question there, Karen. Will there be a school bus for SWAT?
There is, yeah, as I mentioned, there is no school-based transportation earlier than the drop-off time. So if kids want to come in for SWAT, they can ride, they can bike, or they have to be transported. The advice I would give parents that live, too far away for kids to walk or bike is maybe friends hook up with each other and try to carpool as much as you can.
All right. Are there buses available for students that take sports or clubs late, or do they all finish by 3:45?
That's a great question. And unfortunately, yes and no. So our sports teams often do not finish by the time the late bus is available. So they need transportation. And again, that's where that carpooling comes in really handy. But our clubs, yes, our clubs finish on time for any student in the club to take the late bus.
What about kids with food allergies? Do they have separate tables to use?
Great question. So we do not separate them by tables, but we do, however, and so we talk as a staff all the time about hard and soft and what's loose and tight with regard to rules. And this is one of the ones that's really tight. And I hate to say this to parents because there are times when I have to put on my principal hat and, talk a little bit more sternly. So when we address, and it's not just me, it's our 2 assistant principals, Mark and Jackie too. We address all of our students in their lunches in the cafeteria, literally in the first week of school. And this is where we've changed in the last 20 years. 20 years ago, we had kids preparing at their table an entire Thanksgiving dinner. One kid would bring the stuffing, another kid would bring the turkey, some kids got the cranberries. And there is no more food sharing amongst kids because we recognize that the preponderance of allergies has increased, the severity of allergies has increased. There are kids who do not yet know that they have an allergy, and there are kids that want to keep their allergies private. So there is absolutely no food sharing in the building. So that includes food you buy here. It also includes food you bring in. So students are never allowed to share food at their table.
All right. And again, if you're just joining us or you're kind of wondering what's going on, we are having this Q&A with Mike Klugman, BCMS principal. He is talking about sort of what's expected and what's to come for our students and staff and the entire community for Bethlehem in 21-22. Right now, if you have any questions, you could feel free to private message me them right here to Brian Sinkoff, which my name is on the screen there, and we're going to get your questions answered. I'm not going to mention your name. You don't have to worry about that. All right. Do you foresee any point if when Albany Department of Health relaxes restrictions, but you decide not to?
No, we've never gone against whatever the recommendations by specifically the Albany County DOH. We're going lockstep with whatever they say.
All right. I'm a parent of an incoming 6th grader, and I have not had to use Aspen often, but it sounds like I will need to use it regularly. Is there an Aspen training or similar program for parents?
Yeah, so we've done those at parent request and whenever we can. So what we typically do at our open houses. And just so everybody's aware, I can give you those dates now. They're all going to be virtual, but we're going to, we typically let parents sign up for them then. We don't offer them then because you're too busy, checking your kids' teachers out. Sixth grade is going to be September 14th at 6 p.m. It's going to be via a link. Seventh grade is September 21st. So it's a week later, September 21st at 6 p.m. Eighth grade, September 28th at 6 p.m. And as parents need an Aspen, whether it's it's not even a refresher, it's square one, we will offer those on demand whenever parents need them.
And that was for open house, you said, those dates?
Yeah, so the open house dates, we will send more notification out to parents in a separate, communique. We'll send those dates out. There's a lot of information that you have to process there. Like we give you links to each teacher. So don't worry about writing those dates down. We will communicate those very proactively toward the end of August so you can mark a calendar. And we got, we'd love to do those live and in person, but we had mixed results, a lot of positive feedback last year that parents didn't have to worry about daycare, taking care of kids, traveling, all that kind of stuff. But when it came down to it, even if, we're still in a pandemic and in a class of 25 students, that could mean as many as 50 or 60 parents. And our classrooms are just not big enough to accommodate that many people and keep you guys safe. So this year, all of our schools will be offering our open houses K through 12 virtually.
What we'll do here, Mike, we'll answer this next question. And then as sort of a halftime, we'll maybe share those important dates now, and then we'll share those at the end, if that sounds like a plan.
Yeah,
I
and
think
Brian,
we
just a quick point. A lot of folks are asking math questions about acceleration. I posted Bill Claremont's name and his email address. Bill is our K-12 math supervisor. And some of that, believe it or not, is above my pay grade as a principal. And Bill works closely with our math teachers in grades 4 through 12 to determine student placement. And if you have any questions about what they're ready for, how they get ready for, what the curriculum is, whether you can get an outline of something to prep for something, send all those questions directly to Bill and he'll get back to you, hopefully within 24 hours. But keep in mind that none of our supervisors are 12-month employees. So in the summertime, it may take them a couple of days to get back to you.
All right, this will be a 1A and 1B question. Then we'll share that slide of important dates. Will there be a school bus for SWAT days? And then 1B, person just got on, don't know if they spoke about whether or not SWAT will be taking place this year. So I know you may have already answered that, but that may be for that latecomer.
Yeah, so I'm pressing share right now on that slide while I speak. So Brian, if I'm somehow glitchy or cut off, just let me know. SWAT, yes, we will be offering SWAT. No, there is no transportation for SWAT. So I apologize on that. You got to get up early and get the kids here if they want to come. So these, just to speak to some of these summer dates so parents are aware, we are, with every ambition, hoping that we can release schedules on August 25th. That would be 6/12. So high school students would get their schedules on the same day. And oh, by the way, that would be when elementary students would find out who their teachers are. If for any reason that date changes, it has happened where, one school's not ready or Aspen just crashes. We will send out a notification letting you know if that's going to be delayed. And then the very following day on Thursday, August 26th, we will start allowing students, because remember, they're going to get their schedule the day before. So the very next day, we start allowing students to come into the middle school. We didn't allow that last summer, where they bring a copy of their schedule. We provide them a paper copy of a map, and we don't walk with them. We encourage them to walk on their own or with a friend or with a parent. Any of those are fine. And believe it or not, we want them to get lost, because the more they get lost now, the more comfortable they'll be in not getting lost later on. And usually 2 times through 2 separate days, the kids come in after walking their schedule. They know what's going on. This gives them a chance to say, okay, I have homeroom in 110, room 110. I have first period in room 112. I have PE up in the PE, the upper gym. And they literally walk class to class. They get an orientation. They kind of figure out where they're going. And their lockers are always right within, like 30 feet of their homeroom. So they know that too. So they can walk their schedules right up until September 8th, because our first day of school is September 9th. And then also our orientation, as I mentioned at the outset with Brian, is going to be a little bit different this year. Normally our orientation is only for 2 groups of kids. It's only for our incoming 6th graders, and it's only for students transferring to Bethlehem from outside the district. This year, however, because our 7th and 8th graders, our 7th graders may not have been in the building yet at all. So remember, last year we had a remote learning option. Some of our 7th graders have never been to the middle school. So if you have a 7th or 8th grade child and you want to come to that orientation, by all means, you're welcome to do so. if your child wants to come, but they want to be independent, they don't have to walk around with their counselor. They can walk their schedule. And the advantage of doing that, kind of quasi-independent, is, oh my gosh, I just thought of a question. They can go find the counselors that are walking around the building, and they can ask them that question and kind of jump into a group and then jump out. That's fine too. That's Thursday, August 26th, this August. The tours start at 9, 10, and 11 a.m. No RSVP necessary. And again, the note about 7th and 8th graders. For now, students and parents have to wear masks. Again, if that changes, we will let you know.
And I encourage you parents out there, get out your cell phones and take a picture of this screen. Whoops.
I'm
Sorry.
putting it back up. Sorry,
My
Brad, I'm
bad.
putting it back up.
We didn't get that rehearsal down, Mr. Klugman. Yeah, there we go. We got to go back through the rehearsal. All right. We'll give you a sec. Take a picture of that screen, everyone.
And just so all the parents, so you parents that can't get into your Aspen, you definitely want a picture. For you parents that can get into Aspen, and I'm kind of joking because we'll help all you parents who can't get in. We will send this information out literally every week in August, and you're probably going to be sick of us by the time we get to that date. But that's okay. You can always press delete on those extra emails once you've got it written in a calendar.
All right, here we go. Back to the main page, and you can, by the way, you can do speaker view, which might help in terms of what you're looking at as we're answering these questions. You don't see a bunch of people's names on the screen. All right, let's rapid fire these, Mr. K. How do late clubs run? First year at BCMS, I'm an incoming 8th grade transfer.
Kids get dismissed from their 9th period class at 2:45. They go to their locker, take care of business. Then they go to their club, wherever that room is. They hang out there until approximately 3:30, maybe 3:45. Our teacher's contract day ends at 3:30. If they're running a club, they may stay till 3:45. If teacher has to leave at 3:30, we have a supervised space like our cafeteria where we have staff there that supervise students for that 15 minutes before they go out to the late bus. Otherwise, if parents give them permission to walk home, bicycle home, get picked up, they can do that.
All right, how will it work for 8th graders with resource room? Also, who never had a foreign language, there's no resource room on the schedule shown, just a foreign language.
Yeah, so that's a very specific question, very specific to one person. Send me an email on that and I will connect you to either your child's counselor or the CSE chair, and it may be both depending on the specifics of the question. And then one other question came in, Brian, with regard to other dates of tours. We don't have general other dates, but we do, our counselors will meet with any new students. So if parents, want to meet, like you have a new student coming into the building, our counselors like to help get them set up, get them their Chromebook, do that kind of stuff. So counselors come back that week of August 26th, whatever the Monday is. So email your child's counselor. Again, you can find that on Aspen. Say, we'd love to meet with you if we can. But please, if you don't need a meeting and you can handle things over email, please handle that via email. If your child really wants a meeting and above and beyond walking their schedule or coming to an orientation, by all means, please reach out and request that.
What website has the athletic information? What is SWAT? There's a lot of info that is clear to people who have been through this, but we're still new to the district. That's okay. That's what we're here for. Mike,
so Brian, on that list that we're going to send out to parents, it's already made for the most part. It was on your students' team agenda last year. They can still open that up. That link is still there. But there's going to be many more clubs that are active this coming year than were active last year. So that when we send out a list of all those extracurricular clubs and activities, you'll see the title of it. You'll see the staff member who's running it with their email, and you'll see a description of what it is. SWAT in this case has nothing to do with police. It is student wellness and training. It's an athletics kind of thing, a PE kind of thing, getting kids, getting them up running before the start of their day. And we give trophies out to kids who do that all 3 years because we think it's pretty impressive if a kid every Tuesday and Thursday gets into the building by 6:45. That's pretty cool.
Is it too late to sign up for fall sports if I have an 8th grade student?
No, it is not. You definitely want to reach out to our school nurses though. And that link, which is on your parent Aspen page, is where your starting point. And if you can't find links to any contacts, send an email to me and I'll pass it along.
You mentioned Bill Claremont, William Claremont, math supervisor. You have his info there. A lot of people are saying Bill's super responsive to emails and questions. How many students will be in each lunch section?
That's a great question. So normally our cafeteria, when we're not in a pandemic, can hold easily 360 kids. We have one cafeteria. All the students from a grade level eat at the same time, and all the students from a grade level will eat at the same time this year. It just depends on how far apart we have to seat them. which is to how many locations they eat in. At a minimum, we think we're going to have to eat in 2 separate locations. At a maximum, it'll be 3. So teams would eat in the same location. So Hudson would eat in one place, Mohawk another, and Patroon, which is what we did last year.
Other dates for tours other than August 26th?
No, unless they're by personal request to your child's counselor.
If you had an all remote 6th grader last year, will your child be in the same spot or did they lose their spot?
I'm not sure what they mean by spot, but
They maybe made a house.
yeah. So students roll upward. So if your child was on Patroon last year, they'll be in Patroon this year, and they'll roll up with this with their peers that are on Patroon. We're building them a schedule to be inside the building, which brings me back to that whole point about an online modality. We right now, as a district, are not planning to offer any online learning option. That's not my decision. It's potentially a board decision. It's also potentially a BOCES decision. So that's one of those things that, depending on where the guidance goes, where variants go, I don't know if that will change.
When will fall sports tryouts be?
That depends on the sport and the level. High school sports, so freshman level, JV level, varsity level, always start earlier, and usually in reverse order. The oldest kids start first, because if there's younger kids trying out for the oldest level sport, which would be varsity, and they don't make the team, we want to make sure they get full experience or opportunity to start the tryouts with the next level that they play at. And then modified starts last. So the good news for modified level parents is that your child is not going to start at the same time the varsity is. So there's a little bit more time in the summertime. If you feel like you're behind the 8 ball, trust me, you're fine. You're doing okay.
Well, we still have the Chromebook from elementary 5th grade. Do we keep it for the summer and come to 6th grade with it?
Yes and yes.
All right. Do buses get to the school in time for breakfast?
Yes, they do. And a couple of things. Some buses roll in at 7:50, 7:50. Other buses are 7:55. We make time during homeroom. If your child, let's say it's a snowy day, not a snow day. Let's say it's a snowy day and your bus is a little bit delayed. Your child can go down during homeroom, which starts at when they come into the building, 8 o'clock, and runs till 8:17. And they can go down for breakfast during homeroom as well.
For walking tours, any RSVP required, or just walk in any day between August 25th through September, or okay to do more than one day?
Yeah, I think the parent said they mean walking their schedule. No,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
no RSVP. And to be honest, I hate working in the summer, even though I get a ton of work done when there are no distractions. And the reason why I hate it is because I'm a people person. And I love that week when we start opening up the building for kids to walk their schedules. I spend more time out in the hallways than I do in my office because I hate sitting. It's like the new cigarette smoking, I hear. So yeah, we get literally hundreds of kids walking their schedules. It's a lot of fun. In some cases, it's the first time kids are seeing their peers that they haven't connected with in a couple of months. So yeah, no RSVP necessary. We will, however, put out the hours that's applicable because our custodial staffs go back to summer hours. They don't work till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. So we usually end that or sunset that at 4 p.m. every day, but we'll put more information about that as we get into August.
Will the lunches have assigned seats again like last year?
Sort of. We're going to try and work with students to find them, friendship circles, right? So they can sit with friends. But once a student picks a seat, in order to change it, they're going to have to get permission because we may need to contact trace. So we do need a seating chart. We'll have seating charts in all their classes. We'll have seating charts in their clubs. We literally have to know if DOH contacts us and says, where was Molly during 7th period? We have to know where Molly was. So yeah, we'll have to have assigned seats. That said, those assigned seats can be changed.
All right, we have some hybrid sort of quarantine questions. So it's like a 1A, B, and C here. Why, or is it they're not considering a hybrid school year this year?
Well, so there's a lot of reasons to that. One of them is budget and financial. It really put a strain on the district to be able to do that because we hired all extra teachers for that, and or where we had existing staff teach those sections, we hired new teachers to come in for those teachers. Because remember, we not only replaced those teachers, but we added sections K through 12 for the most part. So we need a lot of extra staffing last year. We also found out that whereas some students did really well in that modality, the majority of students did not. We had vast increases in mental health issues, vast increases in student disengagement. tremendous organizational struggles for students who didn't get work done. And we genuinely do not think it's in students' best interest to have an online modality this year. That said, we're going to listen to the health and safety experts. So if there's guidance or a mandate that comes down that requires Bethlehem to do it, I'm sure that our superintendent, Jody Monroe, and our board, they will take that under advisement and they'll follow whatever mandates that we are governed by.
Real quick, if you're just joining us, you have questions, or you maybe know some other parents in the school district who are trying to get in, we do have a lot more space now to get into this Zoom. If you missed part of this meeting the video is going to be posted on the Bethlehem Middle School PTO page, as well as on YouTube. And I'm going to link that on our Facebook page as well. So you're not going to miss it. And we do have another one of these meetings in August. We'll let you know that date in a second. All right, keep this going as far as the hybrid/quarantine. If kids are at home quarantined or have symptoms and aren't allowed in, will there be an online learning option in that case?
Not probably in the means that the parent is suggesting, but we will offer like a virtual connection to a tutor. So for middle school age students and high school age students, that would be 2 hours a day. So teachers will provide work electronically, either via Aspen or via their Google Classroom. And then students would work independently, asynchronously, not connecting to their class through the day. And then whenever we can set up that tutoring, it may not be embedded in the school day because some of our staff may have to do it. So it may be at 5 o'clock, it may be at 6 o'clock. If we can find subs that are willing to do it during the day, we will certainly try. But that 2 hour tutoring piece would be for your students after they've looked over the work that they've had assigned to ask any questions, get help, do those kinds of things. And again, just like I did here, the tutor and your child can share their screen so they can work together and do those kinds of things.
Will it be online learning on a snow day?
We don't know that yet. So I honestly don't know. I'm just looking, my own personal experience. I love snow days as a kid. I was a big sledder, and I'd love to give kids the opportunity to have snow days, especially when snow is in the forecast. I would say this, if all of you recall back to October when we had that enormous windstorm, a lot of the town, including the middle school, lost power for 2 days. Yep. So there's going to be no instruction on snow days, if we lose power. And then we're not planning any virtual sort of instruction right now to begin with. So if I had to say yes or no, I would say no, we're probably not going to teach on snow days.
How do I find out information about what food allergies can be supported by your breakfast and lunch program, specifically for an essentially vegan diet?
Yeah, so my recommendation would be send me an email directly, not because I know the answer, but because I know who does. And that's Elisa Iser is our food services director. And Elisa, believe it or not, we had a group of students come to us, I think each of the last 2 years, and offer to work with Elisa and share feedback about vegan and vegetarian options. Elisa has been slowly adding those to our menu. And if you want to be connected directly to her, she loves feedback. And I mean that. She'll take any emails from parents she can get. So send me an email and I will connect you to Elisa.
And by the way, if you'd like to ask a question and be on camera, that's okay too. A lot of people might be a little shy to do that. I get it. Most people are messaging me privately, but if you do have a question, you'd like to have the face-to-face time with Mr. Klugman, we'll totally allow you to do that. There's no restrictions here on that. Will the new students be, and if you want to do that, you can message me, or you can, I think, raise your hand or even chime in on our chat here. Will new students be assigned a Chromebook by the school?
Yes, they will. So every student in the building will have a Chromebook. If you're a new student literally transferring in from outside the district, or if you're a 5th grade student who turned yours in, we want to get you that before the start of school. So if you don't know how to email our help desk, again, send an email to me and I'll connect you to them.
And someone asked, Chromebooks got turned in at the end of last year. Will they be turned back for kids to look at on Aspen? When would they do that? Is it August 25th or is that?
No, they can do that. So our help desk is open all summer. So if your child, let's say you have your Chromebook and it just stops charging, a key pops out, whatever, they drop it, play Frisbee with it. Our help desk is open all summer. So they can do exchanges, they can get it fixed. They may have to pay for replacement if it's negligent, but our help desk is open all summer.
All right. Will there be homework detention this year?
Boy, we're trying not to do too much punitive stuff for kids when they fall behind. We might call it support, and I know that sounds like semantics, but just so everybody's aware of what we've done historically. Our teachers are phenomenal about creating a balanced schedule after school so kids can catch up with them. As you might imagine, our less mature students sometimes are not really good at making decisions that are in their own best interest. So sometimes we have to schedule that. We also, as administrators, we have what we call a Friday after school support, which runs from 3 until as late as 5. We do let students leave early if they get their work done.
Air didn't have to keep listening.
Jody, can you mute yourself, please? So the Friday after school support piece, literally, we have 4 or 5 groups of people that determine whether a student is sitting in our Friday support from 3 to 5 p.m. Sometimes it's teachers, believe it or not. Students opt themselves into it because they just want a quiet place to work. Parents can make that request. Our counselors sometimes make the request. And lastly, sometimes our teachers do if they're falling behind in one subject. But, we're going to impress upon parents and our teachers that the environment around kids this year is going to be hopefully softer and gentler, not just from a school perspective, but hopefully also from a state perspective when it comes to testing and assessment. So we'll see.
Well, we have a Chromebook no carry case. Will that be sent out to kids?
Yeah, so we have cases for every kid in the building. If your child doesn't, does not have one, let us know, and you can stop by the middle school anytime this summer and pick one up.
Okay. What happens if my 8th grader lost her ID? She's been virtual since 6th grade.
We will reprint IDs anytime students need one. We generally give them their first ID for free. We reprint a second one for free. Third ones, we might charge them whatever the cost of literally the ID is. It's $5 or $6.
Sorry if you answer this question, but will students have a choice about which seats they're assigned? Not talking about teacher's choice, but due to COVID.
At lunch, there will be some degree of choice. In classrooms, typically students always have to defer to whatever the teacher's seating chart is. Some teachers, when we're not in a pandemic and there's no seating charting that they're sharing with us, teachers have discretion to give discretion to kids. Unfortunately, we're still in the pandemic. We're still mandating that our teachers have seating charts, and DOH is still going into our seating charts. So there probably will be a lot less discretion this year.
Thought Chromebooks were turned off at the end of the school year. I wasn't sure if the Chromebooks were allowed to be turned on until the school year begins.
Your child probably knows the answer to that, and they know that they can turn them on and that they can access almost anything that they want to get to, they can get to during the school year. And just a heads up, the district just replaced our director of technology. And once our new tech director, Aaron Shevers, is fully on board, the middle school has been working with the elementary schools, and we are looking at a shutoff period that's somewhere starting at 10 or 11 p.m. and we'll flex that during the school year to open it up a little bit, and that when they would stay off until 5 or 6 a.m. So we will have, I think, a summer hours where the kids can't be on them late at night, and then perhaps like a school-based hours with sensitivity to any parents that are traveling to different time zones. So like when we start that shut off, if you're traveling around the world and you want us to rescind that for just your student, we checked on that. We can do that. So if and when that starts, it should start in the next few weeks, and you want us to rescind that for your child because they're traveling outside the time zone, please let us know.
I don't think any of the incoming 6th graders had cases, at least the fully virtual ones did not. Does that mean we should all come in before school starts to pick up the Chromebook cases? Should they be picked up before the first day of school?
We'd prefer that you pick them up before the first day of school. It's in your benefit, especially if your child is traveling or your family's traveling with their Chromebook, to give everybody kind of a heads up. I think it's 4 years now that we've been one-to-one. And in the first 2 months that we were one-to-one and we allowed kids to take them home, the breakage rate was incredible for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And that fell overnight as soon as we provided those kids cases. So the cases aren't foolproof. If your child drops one from a 2nd-story building, it's going to break the Chromebook. But they're really strong. So if you want to pop by our main office, literally come to the front door, ring the bell, and we will come out, bring one out to you. And you can do that any day we're open this summer, which I think is almost all of them. I don't think there's any holidays that we're closing for the rest of the summer other than Labor Day.
Is there concerns that kids will have no online learning option when they are forced to stay home 3 to 4 days randomly every time someone has a sniffle, which can happen multiple times a year?
Yeah, so I don't know if that guidance is going to change. I mean, based on what we heard today, a student who's vaccinated, who's asymptomatic, does not need to stay home. And I don't know where your doctor would call sniffles. So, if you go see your family physician and they say this is not a COVID symptom, I don't know if guidance has loosened up to allow those kids to come to school. We are definitely going to communicate that to parents, however, and we will make sure our nursing offices reach out, and our nursing coordinator and our Dr. Gafuri who's our health director. They coordinate and communicate with all of the regional physicians. So everybody's on board with that. And as that changes, we will certainly make sure parents are aware of what that requires.
I'm coming in as an eighth grade transfer. To go to school directly to pick up a Chromebook and ID, or do I need to reach out to somebody first?
So typically, if a brand new student transferring into the district, we love to set up appointments to meet with counselors. If you want to get your Chromebook prior to that, send me an email. ID, you don't need to worry about until the first day of school. You're not going to need your ID for anything until you're actually in the building.
Do kids bring their Chromebooks back and forth to school every day?
They do, but they don't have to. So if parents don't want their kids to bring their Chromebook home, we do store, we get about 20 requests a year where the kids just drop off their Chromebook in their case in the main office at the end of the day. We charge them overnight for them, and then they pick them up first thing in the morning. The only cautionary tale I would give to parents before you consider that is to make sure you have a device at home that they can use. And I only say that because no kid anticipates that they're going to be outside of school tomorrow and they might need that device if there's no devices at home. And that brings me to another point, which is if you do not have Wi-Fi at home, the Chromebooks cannot connect to a cellular network. So we do have the opportunity and means to help parents who may have spotty Wi-Fi reach out. It's a very few and a small percentage of people. So if you have those concerns, please either send me or your counselor an email. If you want greater discretion, you can reach out through your counselor and they can set that up.
Will homework be paper or virtual?
Probably a little bit of both.
Do we know which percentage of eligible students are vaccinated? Well, we know no one in sixth grade can be vaccinated. So that's 2/3 of the school maximum, right?
So the answer to that is yes, we know, and no, we're not telling you. We're not legally allowed to.
Okay. But we know no one in sixth grade
Correct.
can be as of now, right? So that is 1/3 of the school is not, which doesn't violate any privacy laws, just based on age limitations. Correct. Okay. Any other questions, Mike? Do you want to share again? Because I did get a request to share that page with important dates.
Coming up right now.
All right. So this is important dates coming up. Encourage you to take out a cell phone. If you haven't done that, take a picture of that page. So you do have that regarding schedule releases and orientation. Okay.
Another point of order that I would add, the PTO and obviously our school staff get lots of gratitude from parents and kids when we do stuff like this, or, just generally through teaching. I can absolutely say that our gratitude is greater to all of you than it is you coming our way. And that's not to diminish how you feel. It means a tremendous amount to us. And I know I speak for the PTO when our parents are involved, because it changes the lives of your kids. So thank you to all of you that made your time for tonight. It's a beautiful night outside. There's lots of other things we all could have been doing. It means a great deal to us that you're here. And we love all your kids just like they're our own. And it means so much to us that you guys make time. Bethlehem is a phenomenal district, and not because our kids read before they come to kindergarten, and not because they're all athletic, and not because they all play an instrument, because of the parental support that we get. And we do we spend a lot of time making sure we hire the right staff and training them. So that partnership is really important to us, and we thank you all for making the time tonight. And as Brian said, we've got another event coming. Brian, I don't have my calendar up. Is that?
Yep.
I know it's a Monday in August. I'm not sure which
Yep.
one.
Let me pull that up. And I'm gonna, if anyone has any questions and you need information about the PTO and things going on with the school, BCMSPTO.org is our website. There was a link to this Zoom. We're also going to have a link to the YouTube video of this meeting that will be recorded. It's going to be on our website as well as our Facebook page. So the next meeting, mark this one down, because Mike, I'm sure the guidance for COVID is going to be a lot different. We're going to probably know a lot more information as we get closer to the school year. So I'd encourage everyone to attend August 23rd at 6 p.m. That's August 23 at 6 p.m. And that is a Monday at 6 p.m. And we are not going to have a limit on Zoom that night. So we will open it up to as many people as would like to come.
Yeah, and I would say this too, before you type your questions in, because I know they're coming right now. What happens if we can't make that meeting? Or can we do another night? You don't have to. Send me an email. I talked to 2 or 3 parents on the phone today. If you want me to call you, that's fine. Send me an email. Tell me what the best time to call you is, what your number is. I'm here most of the summer. I try to do some vacation, but believe it or not, I actually have more fun taking a couple hours off here and there, because all my kids are grown. And if I'm out, if they have activities, I'm obviously out of the building doing stuff with them. But because they're so spread out and so many things going on, we aren't doing that full week-long parent thing. So I'm happy to call people. We're happy to email back and forth. Don't worry about if you can't make a meeting. If you've got questions and you want to reach out, I'll help you answer, find information if I don't know it. So please, don't get anxious, don't get nervous, don't get tense. Ask questions. Don't be afraid. There's no dumb question. And especially during the pandemic, literally, things have changed so much that you might be asking a question you asked a month ago and the answer might be different.
Yeah. If anyone has any questions they'd like to come on camera, you can do that. If not, we'll keep answering the questions. You can message me privately. If restrictions are eased for vaccinated students, will proof of vaccination need to be shown? Again, I'm just asking these questions privately.
No, our nurses already, so our nurses have a medical database that they are legally allowed to access. They have access to all students. Once students get their vaccinations, our nurses have access to that information. You can share it if you want. As parents, you don't have to. And if that changes in any way, we'll let you know.
I meet my counselor day of walkthrough.
Say that again, Brian.
Sorry about that. Do I meet my counselor the day of walkthrough? Was a question.
You can, unless you want to reach out ahead of time. But usually that's the first time incoming new students, 6th, 7th, or 8th grade. If you're new to the building, that's the first time you meet the counselor.
What accelerated activities are available other than math? When I spoke to the superintendent, it seems like math is the only option. If that's what can parents do to encourage the district to provide these opportunities?
So believe it or not, I've been the middle school principal now for 11 years. Before that, I was the science supervisor, K-12, for 4 years. We don't believe in accelerating in science. And the reason why, so here's a heads up. My 3 kids went through the high school. The New York State mandate for science credits by the time a student graduates from high school is 3. So out of their 4 years, they have to take at least 3 sciences. My kids average 6 to 7.5. And whatever your kids, if it's not science, that's fine. If your kids are interested in technology, if they're interested in English, they can do the same thing. We want to make sure that every student that leaves us in the middle school has not only a really strong foundation in all of the subjects that we teach, but that we really strengthen and build and reinforce a really strong help-seeking self-advocacy behavior, which is why we have these help-seeking periods after, before school, home base. And you'll hear from us if your children are not developing that skill and or atrophying in it, because typically what we want all of our 8th graders especially to know is that if you walk around the high school at their regular dismissal, anywhere from 1/10 to 1/2 of the students in the high school are in classrooms working with their teachers after the regular dismissal, because they have a late bus too. And we want to compel students. And here's a couple of caveats for every parent. Every single 6th grade parent has a child who thinks there's a stigma attached to asking for help. In other words, your child thinks they're dumb, stupid, whatever you want to label it, or in any negative or pejorative term. And we want to erase that and rebuild it so that they know that it's the strongest students in our high school who are working with their teachers every day and asking for help, because that is absolutely a behavior of academics and kids with great scholarship. And we feel like we have felt for a long time that it's our job as a district. By the time a child leaves our high school, they know how to find and interact with their college professors. We feel like our job at the middle school is to help kids do that when they get to high school, especially if a child is going to take the toughest course load that they possibly can, because there is no child that's ready for that course load without asking for help.
Okay, let's keep the questions going. Sifting through these. Mike, did you?
Ryan, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention. So there are other accelerated options. All right,
Oh, yeah.
so there's three. We offer an accelerated high school art credit to 8th graders. That's a lottery-based system they have to apply. It's also based on some merit. So, you know, if they failed art in 7th grade, they can't get into 8th grade, the studio and art. There's another one, Project Lead the Way series of technology courses. The Introduction to Engineering course is offered again by lottery to 8th grade students. And that's a challenging course. It actually, as an 8th grader, you take an exam at the close of that course that can gain you college credit. And then the last one, a lot of our parents don't know this. The New York State mandate for numbers of years of taking foreign language in middle school is only 1, because Bethlehem offers 3. Our students take their proficiency exam. Most of our students take their proficiency exam at the end of their 8th grade year. That carries with it a high school credit. 97% of our kids pass that proficiency exam. Most students across New York State that go to a middle school that only offer 1 year of foreign language, they won't take that proficiency until either the end of their freshman year or the end of their sophomore year.
Mike, did we get any more questions from the Google share thingy?
Checking right now.
That's probably not the appropriate term for that, but see if we have any of those.
I think we hit those.
Okay. Does anyone have any more questions? You can ask them on camera. You can message me here. We can get to those. I think we have 1 or 2 more, and then we can wrap this up. Appreciate everyone joining us. Matt says, thanks for asking the questions and hosting. Matt, we appreciate you joining us. That's what we're here for. Again, we are going to have another one of these August 23rd, 6 p.m. That is a Monday. So Monday, August 23rd, 6 p.m. will be our second and final Q&A.
I'd say there's a terribly slim chance that maybe we push that back. And the only reason why I say that is if guidance doesn't change between now and then, which I think it will, maybe we push that back, assuming we get guidance closer to the school year. But I think we're going to do everything to keep that date.
Okay. Yeah, we'll play it by ear, and obviously you'll be alerted. It says, thanks to Mr. Klugman and Brian Sinkoff and the BCMS PTO for organizing this and dealing with all the ensuing emails and posts from people trying to get in tonight. You are quite welcome. I appreciate you joining us. Mr. Klugman, I don't think we have any more questions unless there's a last minute question or two. So on behalf of the BCMS PTO, as well as the BCMS community, I want to thank you so much for joining us for this Q&A about the upcoming school year. Again, if you want to maybe give your email or whatever, people may want to reach out to you, because I know some people had some private questions as well. You can share it in the chat. They can obviously go on the district website. Correct, Mike?
Correct.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Klugman. Thanks to everyone for joining us. Everyone be safe. Appreciate the opportunity that you gave us, and we'll see you in August, and you guys be safe out there. Enjoy the rest of your summer. Take care.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Good night, everyone.